My name is Elena Merrick. I am 68 years old. I had arrived at the Charleston airport almost 2 hours early, the way I always did when it involved Henry and his family. It made me feel useful to help with the bags, to be the steady pair of hands that kept things moving. I had spent the past week folding outfits for the grandchildren, packing small snacks, and choosing the right gifts for their trip to Arabia, little things I thought would make them smile. I spotted them before they saw me. Henry stood near the check-in counter in a new leather jacket I had never seen before. Tessa scrolled through her phone, sunglasses still on though we were indoors. The kids sat on their suitcases, swinging their legs, excited in the way children always are before a long flight. I stepped closer, lifting the small gift bag in my hand. Inside were travel journals for the kids, a silk scarf for Tessa, and the old pocket watch that had belonged to Henry's grandfather. I wanted to give it to him before they left. Before I reached them, I stopped behind one of the tall columns in the terminal. I was only catching my breath, but then Henry laughed a careless, light laugh I had not heard in a long time. "She paid for the whole trip," he said with a low chuckle. "She actually thinks she's coming." His voice dropped, but not enough to hide the words I told her there's no seat on the plane. "She's not coming." Tessa laughed too, the kind of laugh that slices rather than softens. My fingers opened without meaning to. The gift bag slipped. The journals hit the floor first, then the scarf, then the watch. No one turned. No one looked for me. I stepped back, heart hammering, realizing I had heard exactly what I was never meant to hear. And as their voices faded into the noise of the terminal, something inside me shifted quietly, like a door clicking shut. I walked away without giving Henry the watch. I had been recording a short voice memo at the terminal to capture the children's excitement. I didn't realize until later what else it had captured. I married William when I was 23. He was quiet, steady, a man who believed in fixing things with his hands before throwing them away. When lung complications took him 5 years ago, the house near the Ashley River felt too large, but I stayed because every corner still carried his voice. Most evenings I kept the lights low and listened to the radio while mending clothes for neighbors. My income was small, but I saved carefully. 2 years of setting aside a few dollars from every sewing job. 2 years of cutting corners, skipping outings, and repairing my old Corolla instead of replacing it. All so Henry, Tessa, and the children could have the kind of trip William once dreamed of, but never asked for. Henry used to stop by every Sunday after William passed. He would sit at the table, eat whatever I cooked, and ask about the old stories his father loved. But slowly, the visits thinned. "The kids have soccer," he would say, or Tessa would text, "Traffic is impossible. Maybe next weekend." Next weekend rarely came. I tried not to mind. Families change, people get busy. I told myself distance was just part of growing older. But as I drove home from the airport, their laughter echoing in my ears, I felt something tightening inside me, a quiet understanding that the distance had not been accidental. I reached my old Corolla before my legs realized I was moving. The door barely shut before my hands began to shake. I gripped the steering wheel, forcing myself to breathe. But the sound of Henry's voice, useless old woman, kept cutting through every breath. I had not cried in 5 years. Not since William's last night at the hospital, but now the tears came fast. Hot, without pause. They soaked the collar of my shirt, blurred the windshield, and left me choking on a grief I did not know I had been carrying. When the sobs finally eased, what remained was not pain. It was something colder, sharper, a quiet, steady clarity that felt almost like someone else's voice rising inside me. I wiped my face with the back of my sleeve. "No more," I whispered. I turned the key. The engine sputtered, then settled into its familiar rattle. I drove aimlessly until the sign for a small brick office on East Bay Street appeared Miriam Hollis, the semi-retired attorney William once trusted most, and the only person William ever said he trusted with anything legal. She answered the door before I even knocked twice. Elena. Her voice softened. What happened? I couldn't sit. I paced once across her office before the words finally came out. I paid for everything. I said, 2 years of saving. And he laughed. He said I'm not coming because I'm useless. Miriam's jaw tightened. Sit down, she said. Tell me exactly what you heard. I told her. Every word. Every laugh. Every part that cracked something open inside me. When I finished, she leaned back slowly, studying me not with pity but with respect. Elena, she said, are you ready to protect yourself? My voice steadied. Tell me how to protect what's mine. Miriam reached for a file drawer. Then we start with your will. Miriam spread the papers across her desk with the same calm precision she had used in courtrooms for decades. I sat opposite her, fingers laced together so tightly my knuckles ached. She adjusted her glasses and tapped one of the documents. Elena, this is your will from 7 years ago, before William passed. I nodded. We never changed it. We thought we had time. You left everything to Henry, she continued, her tone neutral but edged with something firmer. The house, valued at roughly $320,000. Your savings, your pension, the antique furniture William restored, all of it. The words felt heavier than they should have. All of it, I whispered. Yes, she said. If something happened to you today, Henry would inherit everything without question. I thought of Henry's laughter at the airport. Useless old woman. The air in my chest tightened. Miriam watched me carefully. You asked how to protect yourself. This is where it begins. I swallowed. Change it. She didn't move immediately. Elena, this is not a small decision. Once we file this, it becomes binding. Henry will only receive the legal minimum required by state law. Are you certain I am? I said. Surprised by how steady my voice sounded, Miriam opened a fresh folder. Then here's what we can do. First, Henry gets the statutory minimum, nothing more. I nodded. Second, your house will be donated to the Harbor Senior Community Center. They have been trying to expand for years. It would become a meeting space, classes, support groups, a place with purpose. I felt a warmth in my chest, the first real warmth since the airport. William would have liked that. Third, she continued, we can outline some options, perhaps a scholarship in William's name, perhaps a local charity of your choosing. You don't have to decide tonight. For trade apprentices. And the last portion to someone who has supported you consistently. I knew immediately. Clara, I said, she has been there for 5 years. Miriam wrote her name down without hesitation. She slid the new draft toward me. Take it home tonight. Sit with it. If you feel the same in the morning, we sign. I folded the papers slowly, feeling the weight of every page. For the first time in years, the weight felt like my own. Clara knocked twice before letting herself in, the way she always did. She carried a warm container wrapped in a dish towel. I made chicken soup, she said. You look like you need something hot. I tried to smile, but the muscles in my face felt stiff. She set the soup on the counter, then turned and studied me with the kind of gaze that didn't demand answers, but invited them. Elena? She said quietly. Your eyes look tired. What happened? I pulled out a chair and sat. My hands wouldn't stay still. Clara sat across from me, waiting. I had known her for 5 years, long enough to recognize when she would not let me hide behind small talk. I went to the airport yesterday. I began. My voice cracked once before I steadied it. I heard Henry saying things he didn't mean for me to hear. What things she asked gently. That I'm useless. That I paid for everything. But I'm not coming. Tessa laughed. They all walked away like I was nothing. Saying it out loud made the room feel smaller. Clara reached across the table and touched my hand. Elena, listen to me. Love isn't blindness. It's choosing to open your eyes when someone shows you who they are. I felt my throat tighten. I told Miriam to change the will. I whispered, all of it. Clara didn't flinch. Good. You are not punishing him. You are protecting yourself. I breathed out slowly, the truth settling between us. You follow through, she said. And this time, you stand for yourself. Her words didn't heal the hurt, but they steadied me. The first message from Henry arrived 2 days after they landed. A photo, him and Tessa smiling under an archway in Riyadh. Plates of expensive food on the table. Thanks again. Mom? The kids love it here. I typed slowly. Glad you arrived safely. Enjoy your time. Nothing more? More photos came over the next week. Henry posing in a desert camp. The children riding camels. Tessa showing off a shopping bag from a store I could never afford. Each message felt like a postcard from a life I had paid for but was not welcome in. I responded the same way, every time polite, brief, distant. It was the first boundary I had ever drawn with my son. On the 7th day, I went into the box of old letters William had written to me when we were young. I had read them 100 times, but this time his handwriting felt like a hand steadying mine. One line caught me, Elena. Promise me you will never let anyone convince you you are small. I set the letter down and stared at the workshop table in the small room William once used for repairs. His tools were still there, lined up neatly. For the first time in years, I picked up the chisel. I found a small block of cherry wood he had saved. I'll make something to hold the letters, I murmured, sanding the edges slowly, my hands remembering more than I thought they could. Each evening, I carved a little more, not to distract myself, but to claim something back my hands, my time, my sense of worth. The shavings fell softly to the floor, the scent of wood rising like memory. By the 12th day, the box had taken shape. By the 15th, the lid fit perfectly. On the inside, I carved a small line that only I would ever see. I kept my promise. Henry sent fewer texts as the days passed. Shorter messages. Less enthusiasm. On the 21st day, he sent a final note. We land tomorrow evening. Long trip. We will call you. I put my phone down. Their return would bring something none of them expected. I spent the morning arranging the documents on the dining table. Miriam had organized everything into neat folders, each one labeled with a quiet precision that made my hands steadier just looking at them. I brewed a pot of black tea, the same blend William used to drink, and set out 2 cups, one for Miriam, one for myself. I left none for Henry. That decision was small, but it settled into me like a stone. At 3 in the afternoon, Henry texted, Mom, we are exhausted. Can we come tomorrow instead? I typed slowly, deliberately. No, tonight. 6. 3 dots pulsed for a long time before disappearing. No reply came after that. Miriam arrived just before 6. Her calm presence settling beside me as the sound of car doors broke the quiet. Then another, then footsteps. The doorbell rang at exactly 6. I opened the door. Henry stood on the porch. Sunburned and tired, Tessa hovered behind him, her expression tight with irritation, her expensive handbag clasped like a shield. The children drifted in without greeting, their eyes glazed with the boredom of long travel. Mom, Henry began, reaching out as if to hug me. I stepped back, inside. I said, my voice was calm, cold enough that he blinked. They followed me to the dining room. Henry looked at the folders. What is all this? Sit, I answered. He hesitated. Tessa didn't. She dropped into a chair with a scoff. Elena, really? This looks dramatic. Miriam stepped forward. This is not drama, Mrs. Clark. This is legal preparation. Henry's eyes darted between us. Legal. For what? Mom, what's going on? You will listen, I said. I did not raise my voice. I didn't need to. Every word, without interrupting. The children shifted uncomfortably. Tessa's smirk faltered. Henry's confusion curdled into unease. I placed one hand on the folder containing the new will. You came home from your trip. Now it is time to face what you left behind. The room tightened around us. Every breath a held thread. The truth was finally here, waiting to be spoken aloud. Henry sat stiffly, his hands clasped between his knees. Tessa leaned back with her arms crossed, a smile tugging at one corner of her mouth, as if she already knew how this conversation would go. The children sank into the far end of the couch, uneasy, but too tired to understand what was happening. I stood at the head of the table. You want to know why you're here, I said. So I'll start with the truth you left at the airport. Henry blinked. Mom, what truth? The truth you said when you thought I was not close enough to hear. My voice did not waver. This useless old woman paid for the whole trip, but she's not coming. Color drained from Henry's face. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Tessa was faster. Elena, you must have misheard. Airports are loud. People talk over each other. I placed my phone on the table. Screen turned upward. No, I said. I heard you perfectly. I pressed play. The recording crackled. Then Henry's voice spilled into the room clear, unmistakable, cruel. Tessa's laughter followed. The same laughter that had burned itself into my memory the moment I heard it. The children stared at their parents. Tessa's hand shot out and slapped the phone away, but the damage was done. The silence that followed was dense enough to press against the walls. Henry finally spoke. Mom, I didn't mean it. I was tired. Stressed. You meant every word. I said, and you were not tired. You were proud of it. Tessa stood so abruptly, her chair screeched. Elena, this is ridiculous. People joke. Now you're threatening us with recordings. What do you even want? Miriam stepped forward, opening the main folder on the table. Your mother wants clarity, and her decisions reflect exactly that. She slid the first page toward them. Henry skimmed it, then looked up, eyes wide. Mom, this says I'm only receiving the legal minimum. That is correct. Miriam replied, and the house. His voice cracked. It will be donated to the Harbor Senior Community Center. I said, they need the space more than you ever needed me. Tessa's face twisted. You're giving a $320,000 home to strangers. Are you out of your mind? I continued. A portion of the remaining funds will support a scholarship in William's name. Another portion goes to a local charity. And the last part goes to Clara? Tessa barked a bitter laugh. Your neighbor. That woman, I met her stare without blinking. Clara has shown me more respect in 5 years than either of you have in 10. Henry moved toward me, hands trembling. Mom, please. I'm your son. I felt a small, quiet strength rise inside me. Love, I said, does not mean being blind. I closed the folder gently. Not anymore. The words hung in the air, cutting through the last of their denial. Their smiles forced, tired, pretended were gone. What remained was the truth. None of them could outrun. For the first few days after the confrontation, my phone rang almost constantly. Henry called in long bursts. Sometimes 10 or 12 times in an hour, I let every call go to voicemail. His messages shifted from anger to pleading, then to silence. By the end of the week, Clara knocked on my door with a small bag of groceries. He will calm down, she said gently. I know, I answered, but I will not go back to who I was. 2 weeks later, Neighbors whispered about shouting and slammed doors. Tessa packed her bags and took the children. She told a neighbor she refused to live with a man who had nothing. Henry tried to hide it when he called again, but the strain in his voice gave it away. Not long after, he lost a major project at work. Stress. Distraction, whatever the reason. His job slipped from his hands the same way my trust once had. I did not feel triumphant, only still. Most mornings, I walked to the Harbor Senior Community Center, the place that would someday receive my home. I spent hours helping other older adults fill out forms, teaching them how to use the computer labs, listening to their stories. It grounded me. Clara and I grew closer, sharing dinners, quiet evenings, and the small comforts of steady companionship. She never asked for anything. She simply stayed. I had given Henry 28 years of unquestioned devotion. Now, at 68, I chose something different. I took the flight to Arabia 3 months after everything settled. No fanfare, no departure photos. I sat by the window, hands folded, watching the ocean slip beneath the clouds. When the plane touched down in Riyadh, I felt something loosen inside me, as if I had finally stepped into a version of my life that belonged only to me. One evening, I walked through a narrow souk where the lanterns glowed low and warm. The air smelled of spices, cardamom, and distant music. A man selling small wooden boxes called out to me, and I smiled because I understood the craft, the patience behind every carved line. I bought one, not because I needed it, but because I could. No one hurried me. No one dismissed me. For the first time in years, I felt unshadowed. When I returned to Charleston, my days fell into a peaceful rhythm. Morning walks by the water, quiet afternoons at the senior center helping others fill out forms or guiding them through simple stitching patterns. Evenings with Clara, sharing stories. Sometimes laughter, sometimes silence that felt just as comforting. I kept a small lamp on my porch. Not for Henry, not for anyone to return to. For myself, a reminder that I no longer live in the dark corners of other people's choices. And now that you've walked this story with me, there is something I want to ask, not as a mother or a widow, but as a woman who finally claimed her place in her own life. If any part of my journey touched you, I would be grateful if you liked this video or subscribed. Not for numbers, but so stories like ours reach the people who need to know they are not alone. And tell me, where are you listening from? And what part of your story are you ready to reclaim?